Welcome to Behind the DM Screen. This is the weekly podcast where we discuss the tips, tricks, and pitfalls of being a game master for Dungeons & Dragons and other TTRPGs. Yep. We are excited to welcome our first guest to the podcast.
Number one, let's go.
The very first guest.
Sweet.
Yeah. This is my very good friend, Austin. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Austin.
Yeah, Austin Holmes. Dude, I don't even know. I don't know what to say. I'm a post-production supervisor at an ad agency here in Utah. That's where Ian and I met, was at this ad agency.
And where we played our first game of D&D together.
Where we played our first game of
Was
D&D
that your
together.
first game of D&D?
It was
ever?
yeah.
Oh,
Not Ian's.
I was Austin's first GM, which I take
And
this
still
very
is.
near and dear to my heart. And we are still in the same game together, which we started in 2020. So yeah, it's been like 5 years now.
May of 2020.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I guess we normally introduce ourselves,
Sure.
so I guess we'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm Ian. I'm the head of creative content at WorldSmith.
I'm Cameron. I'm editor, do a bunch of stuff behind the scenes.
I'm Matt. I'm the CEO, so I do the boring business stuff.
Very vital. Well, mostly what we wanted to talk about today was we kind of wanted to pick Austin's brain.
Yeah.
One of our favorite things about DMing is that everybody DMs in a different way, and so I think it can be really helpful for people to hear about how people DM, and hopefully it makes it seem a little more accessible for you. So yeah, I guess talk about you. You already started answering this a little bit, but yeah, how long have you been playing RPGs, and what's kind of been your history with that?
Yeah, tabletop role-playing games, only 5 years, ever since that fateful day.
Yeah, definitely.
In
just
2020.
D&D that
It
you
was
played?
just D&D for
Okay.
the first 3, but now it's Daggerheart as well.
Oh,
yeah,
very
I
cool.
started that
You
one in
just
Daggerheart.
how long ago? Right, just recently, right?
It's been 2 months. I mean,
Sweet.
it came out in
Yeah.
May, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty new.
Or something like
Yeah.
that. So it's a very new game. Yeah, I'll get more into that later. But I realized that Knights of the Old Republic, KOTOR.
Ooh,
I played that game
nice.
probably 10 times, and I realized that it was
So fun.
just recently in the last couple of years. I learned that it's like based in D&D.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize
actually
that.
really
Like,
think
I
about
actually
that.
just started replaying it.
Oh, really?
Because they have a phone app now,
Oh,
and I
sweet.
was like on a road trip the other day, and I was like, $10, dude. I gotta
I know,
replay
it's
this,
so
right?
fun.
So-
I have played every iteration of like
I love
the
it.
most light side, the most dark side, and like every mix in between. It's such a fun.
What do you
game,
like more,
so.
light or dark?
You know, at the very end when you face Malik,
Yeah.
I like being dark sided so I can drain all the bodies before he does.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Because like
That's a
the
great
final battle is
reason.
like you like fight him, and then he has like 20 Jedi captive, and he just goes and like life drains them and like regens all his health.
Whoa, wild.
And so if you learn that ability as a dark side
Oh,
user, you can just beat him too every and then it's
That's
a
super
pretty
funny.
quick kill. Anyways,
Yeah.
really fun game. So Ian was my first DM. I mean, still is kind of my first DM. You know?
Yeah. I
So-
mean, we're still playing that same game that
Yeah.
we started. You're still playing. You
Yeah.
are still playing the very first D&D character that you made,
yes,
right?
Osimoto?
Osimo
the
Wise.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great character. Yeah, I mean, talk to me about how, because there's a lot of people who are just like really happy to just stay players of D&D and just players. So I mean, talk to like I kind of remember at some point, I can't remember the exact time, but at some point you kind of saying, "Hey, I'd really love to try GMing," and how would you feel about like that, or how would you feel about me running a couple sessions or taking over or something? So I'm curious to know like what kind of excited you about GMing and what that transition was like.
Admittedly, this is I've quickly unlearned this habit, but we fought Neoti.
Oh yeah,
The black dragon.
like a big dragon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like an adult black dragon or something, and I was a bad player, and I went and looked up the stat block of a black dragon.
Shame.
I know, and I was like,
$10.
how much HP does this guy have?
Oh, like in the middle of the fight?
Nervous. Yeah, in
Yeah,
the middle of
yeah,
the fight,
yeah.
I looked it up, or maybe like between sessions because we only
It
played
took
for like
a couple
an hour at
sessions
lunch,
to beat it. Yeah.
And as soon as I like read the stat block, I was like, oh, there are like young dragons, there are ancient dragons, there are like this like spectrum of just within the color, and then within like there's all these chromatic dragons and these metallic dragons, and I think that really piqued my interest. And then when we wrapped up the first like big adventure with like killing Milroth, who's like the big bad, the BBG, the game, you asked like, hey, does anyone interested in taking over? I think it'd be fun if you could play.
Right.
And so I like decided to take a stab at it, and it was terrible.
I would not say it was terrible. I was a player because I'm realizing now that I was a player in the first game that you ever ran.
Yes.
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm glad you did. I'm glad, and that's what I think. Kudos to all of the players at Creatively for being so game to just like let me stumble through, trying to start like this naval campaign. And anyways,
Why do you think it was horrible?
Looking back on it now, I just like I made a couple calls. Like I put them against this homebrew. What are those little stone? They turn you to stone and they're like chickens.
Rust mites?
Oh.
No.
Turn you to stone.
Yeah.
They're not rocks. They're,
cockatrices?
Yeah.
cockatrices.
The cockatrices. I found this
Yeah.
homebrew like mother cockatrice that was like CR20 or something crazy.
I'm remembering this encounter now.
Yeah. And I turned a couple of them to stone in the game, and they were like, "How do we turn back?" And I like froze and like read the block, and I was like, "You have to. It's like the greater restoration or lesser restoration spell or something like that." No one had that spell.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Ian was the only person that had spell slots of that level. It was a 5th level spell.
Yeah, I was playing a wizard.
But you were playing a wizard, and wizards can't learn that spell. And so I like
fascinating.
I had one of the pirates that you guys were working with like have a book that had the spell in it because I was like, oh, he can just learn it then. And then you like looked it up and you're like, oh, this is like a bard only spell.
That's funny that I looked it up. I don't even remember that
so
at
dumb.
all.
I was like, oh wow, I just tried to like be so cool and improv this, totally messed it up.
Dang.
So that's what just little stuff like that where I'm like, oh, I made such bad calls with like throwing a dragon turtle at you guys and like the way I set up the combat. I like had this like cinematic thing in my mind imagined, but didn't give you guys any chance to like stop it from like hurting the boat or like, you know, doing whatever it did in the combat. And anyways, I feel like I've gotten a little bit better at like allowing the players to do more stuff and like having them more involved in my game as I've progressed. So
Yeah.
It can be hard to go from that like transition to where you're the player and you're making the story happen in the way that you want because like you're the one actually like taking actions.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time for me, I feel like I had a very similar thing where I started DMing and I wanted to control the whole story essentially, right? So I like planned out all these things and I essentially didn't really give my players any like ability to change any of this stuff. And I just like was like, here's your role. And I like made it so clear. Here's what you're supposed to do in each of these scenes. And then they do it. And it removes a lot of the fun and creativity from the players.
Yeah,
so
it totally does.
it's tough.
But I don't think I like railroaded you guys. It was a pretty linear narrative, but it was with the amount of creativity between you and like Astroguard and Sinjin and like all these like crazy powerful
The players had been really nicely developed because it was kind of like basically the players from the campaign I was running. We kind of just swapped around, so you kind of kept running the campaign that I started. So it was fun because the players were already very well developed in their relationships and stuff.
Yeah, but then I went from like only needing to know the wizard class, and then I was like, oh, I don't know anything about rangers, about Justin multi-classed into blood hunter.
Yeah.
We had clerics. We had a
that
fighter.
And that was tricky too because you were playing with almost everyone there at the table that was still their first game, really. So I think there was still a lot of people who were unlocking abilities they'd never had before or were multi-classing for the first time in D&D. And so there was because I would field a lot of questions when running the game of just how the game actually works.
Right.
So that was like a heavy mantle for you to take on. Yeah.
Oh well, but you also helped out where people were like, you know, the cleric was like, how does my healing? Anyways, you would step in and help answer a lot of those questions.
Well, as we've discovered at this table, I'm the worst person to ask about the rules. I'm good at spells.
You are good at spells.
But I don't know anything about the classes or the actual rules of the game.
When I first started playing, I bought my own player's handbook. I was a player at the time, and my friends accused me of cheating because they were like, why do you need a player's handbook if you're a player?
It's for the players.
It's so funny.
And what I did learn is the more you DM, the more you learn about the game. Do you feel like you just know multitudes more about the game since being a dungeon master?
Yeah. And then being on D&D YouTube is just like all the nuances. I'm honestly surprised I didn't know about the coffee lock that we were talking about earlier. I was like, you know, I can't name any of them off the bat, but I feel like I know all these different like crazy combos that people just Reddit's just full of them. You know, oh, try this combination and this multi-class and this spell combo with your. Anyways,
going for hours.
Yeah, that's right. What's one of the like? I think. Now that you have kind of experienced, I mean, because currently you're a player in a campaign and you're also running a couple of campaigns, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you say is the thing you enjoy most about? Because I think there's a lot of people out there like that we see on our Discord and stuff that are like, I want to get into GMing, but I feel really intimidated by it.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you think? Like as someone who started off as a player and then swapped to GMing, like what do you enjoy most about it, and how would you like pitch it to someone who's curious about it?
Yeah, I think. Oh man, that's a great question. I love the world building aspect of it. I think it's really fun to like there's all like the cutscenes. I was just watching a video on YouTube about the movie Aragon, and how they like keep cutting away to Galbatorix, and like showing him just like brewing in his throne room and just kind of just like the whole time. But like doing that as a GM is so fun for me, where I'm like, oh, okay, they very briefly, they'll like the BBEG's up here and they'll like meet him and like have an interaction with him and then go off and do their own thing and then come back and like meet him again. And I'm like, the in-betweens for me are so fun to be like, okay, he's recruiting, he's like capturing fire elementals from the plane of fire, and he's like buffing out his fortress and like laying all these traps and creating this dungeon for the players that like they're not going to run into for another 2 years.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's so fun to world build in that way and just be like, oh, and then, do the same thing with the past. Be like, there's this castle, this ruin, who lived here and what happened, and like what, was it just bad commerce that like brought the castle to a close, or was it, a young white dragon that swooped down from the mountain and like just froze the whole thing over? So yeah.
What's fun for me too is like, obviously as someone who has talked to you a lot about D&D, I feel like, I could be misremembering this, but I feel like when you started GMing, it felt like that was the thing that maybe intimidated you the most, was like having this like backstory and knowing the things that are going on outside the players. So it's very cool actually to hear you say like that's actually the part that I enjoy the most about it, because I feel like in the beginning, I remember, if I remember correctly, you being quite nervous about being like, how do I build a world that's big and interesting?
Totally.
Do you feel like, were there maybe tools or things you learned along the way that you think made you feel, oh, now I'm not afraid of this anymore, I'm excited about it?
I mean, there's countless YouTube channels. I think Matt Colville's was really helpful, and just like, start small. And that's what eventually I ended up with. The campaign that we're currently running there at Creatively is a homebrew world, because I wanted to be able to like, not retcon, but just improv things that were like, oh wait, I need to call Ian and ask really quick. What's the lore behind this thing?
I'm glad you took total ownership of it and made it your own.
Yeah, and that's why I've never run a module before, is because I feel like those are a little too limiting, and like I never wanted to like, oh, let me control F potion really quick and see if I can find like who has a potion in this town and like scroll. And, you could get one from this quest, and, and I just want to be able to tell them like there's a potion here, which I know you can do, but for when I first started, I felt so limited by that and felt like I had to stay within the confines of the module, which is why I've never done it. But
60% of DMs never used a module.
Really?
Yeah, they refuse
to
use it.
That's fascinating.
That's crazy.
Because they feel limited by it.
Yeah. I have yet to. Well, actually, I ran Lost Mines of Phandelver, and that was that was a blast.
That was not too bad.
I've been wanting to do, what's the super classic dungeon with the Lich at the end? No, the super old school one. Tomb of Annihilation. I've been wanting to run Tomb of Annihilation.
That one is fun, but it makes me mad. So
no, that's why I want to run it. I want to run it because it's impossible to win.
It is. As a player, you just have to be incredibly creative, or the luckiest
and
person
you
on
just
the
die
board.
all the time.
So did you find with prepping your own sessions and like kind of homebrewing your own stuff, the time it takes to prep a session went down, like, or do you still put a lot of time and effort into each session?
I'd say, as I have like just accumulated a bunch of knowledge on magic items, spells, spell scrolls, potions, whatever it is, weapons, that allows me to improv a little bit better in the moment. A bunch of different stuff, but I don't think it drastically, like maybe incrementally, it has reduced my prep time.
Well, even improv, like I find myself improving way more than I used to the more I DM. Like it's gotten to the point where I maybe prep for like 20 minutes before the session.
Yeah,
like
as you remember you reading me once your session prep, and it was 2 sentences.
2 sentences. And he didn't even remember what they were.
but if you just get really good at improving, then I feel like the best moments of D&D generally come from like the unexpected improv moments.
Yeah.
So do you find it's easier to do that the more you DM?
Yes, definitely. As you practice it, as you sharpen that tool, it definitely gets easier. I definitely stray from improving on creating the motivations of all the different NPCs. I feel like that. I always want it to tie back to the players' backstories and their characters that they've made. And so they're like in my Daggerheart game right now. They're just arrived at this city named Roth Hollow, and I'm like, I know that I want it to be under siege from this like external force, so they have to like fight their way into the city, but then they also have to like gain the trust of the people. They're like in the middle of this really stressful situation. And so anyways, I've put a lot of thought when I prepped the session. I put a lot of thought into what is the Duke of the city doing? Are they their own kingdom? Who do they like pay, fealty to and everything? So that I can make better informed improv decisions in the moment when they ask me whatever question they end up asking me.
Yeah, totally.
And then that helps me think about like, okay, what are the shops like here?
Right.
And, because they've been under siege for a while, the shops are a little scarce because they haven't had, like a deposit. I don't even know.
Yeah.
There's been no one there to bring new materials. So anyways, just stuff like that where I'm like, if they ask about the shop or about relics or, shady people, I know like the spectrum of what type of people are here in this city.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm like to dive a little deeper into that. Yeah, like when you're building a session around a new location, like a city or something. So, yeah, is the majority of your notes about NPCs? Are you going in and writing out specific shops? Are you writing out like story beats of like anticipate they'll do this? Like what do your like physical session notes actually look like when you're prepping a session?
That's a great question. I think I tend to improv some of the smaller stuff. If they do want to go to a shop, I'll usually just improv those. If I've thought about, okay, specifically I want them there to be, or if like the shop has a clue that like leads into like the final confrontation at like the mini boss of this location, then I'll definitely like plan the shop keep and the specific item or clue or whatever happens. But I'll usually improv those. I'll improv locations, which is difficult because having digital maps is really helpful.
Yeah.
But we've got this like magnetic terrain that we use, and so we can kind of, if there was like an alleyway where they got ambushed or where they started a chase and started trying to find someone that had run off with something. But my session notes definitely look like, I could even pull them up right now. If you want me to.
I think it's super interesting. It's something we'd like to talk about a lot.
I'm also interested in your digital maps because I also use digital maps.
Yeah, I use digital maps a lot.
My sessions, like almost 100%.
Because you've got the cool like screen set up on the table situation.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I love it. It's just a TV with some like wooden.
It looks good though. It looks good.
Over it. Yeah, but it like I find that like when I'm prepping a session, sometimes adding digital maps almost makes it a lot harder because I'll like have an idea for what I want for the session. I'll like map it out. And then I'll look for maps that I want. And I'm even like subscribed to Patreons and like a couple of things that. Yeah. And I'll like find something that's close, but it's not quite the same. And then I'll have to like go back and like rework my session.
Totally.
And then go back and find another map and like have to do that a couple times. I'm curious like how does that impact your flow?
So if I've given them a specific like go to this location and I know that they're headed to this building, this, whatever environmental feature, then I'll look for a map for that specifically because I know that, okay, they're going to travel here to whatever it is. But if it's on the fly, I've actually started, Daggerheart is really big on like opening the collaboration, the story, the world building and the storytelling up to the players, which I think D&D still does, but it like explicitly says like, don't know what the room looks like, ask your player to describe it. And you can just have them like, it comes with a level of trust. You can't just say like, hey, we found the thing. It's on the table in the room,
It's a mission set of gold.
Look up, it is here. But it takes trust in them that they're also invested in telling a cool story and aligning with the tone and the mood and the theme that you've established from the get-go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I more often than not don't have a digital map planned.
Yeah.
But I've started to be like, okay, you guys are outside the limits or the city of Stumpunion was a city we were just at.
It's a great name.
That was on Max actually. Max named the city.
Stumpunion. Yeah, that's good.
Stumpunion. And I was like, here are all the tiles, and they arrived 5 minutes before the session started, and I said, put a map together of what you guys think it'll like looks like.
Oh,
outside.
that's cool.
That's fun.
That's really
So
fun.
they like put a river, put a couple trees, and then I just like. I knew what the adversaries were going to do, so I just had them come in.
It's an interesting way of doing it. I feel like a lot of the time, especially in D&D, and I don't know if this is the same for your guys' sessions, but the GM takes the role of, hey, I'm building the story in the session in a lot of ways, and then like the players throw their own wrenches into it and like make it their own in a lot of ways. But this actually sounds really fun, where the players kind of get to drive what their story really looks like.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it also, like, in my experience, it creates, like, I think by creating that kind of bridge of trust, then the bridge of trust returns as well, where the players are kind of like, oh, we're building a story together, and the story is more important than my individual survival or something. You know what I mean? Like you get to a point where I think the players stop trying to find the loopholes in your plan and start being like, oh, I get it. Like the story's going to be better if we make this more challenging for ourselves versus just kind of like, great, we want it to be easy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I definitely, I felt more as I've played a little bit more of Daggerheart that D&D is definitely like, especially where the spells are so specific, the rules are so specific to the feat, to the time, to the minute. A lot of my players would just be, probing every single situation and being like, where are the holes that Austin didn't plan for?
Yeah.
And this is more fun because now I'm just like, okay, one of my players is playing a fairy named Elsie. And so I'm like, Elsie, someone approaches Elsie and hands her this like pouch of mythic dust, I think is what the magic item is called in Daggerheart. And I said, who's this person and why did they seek you out specifically as opposed to the other people? And so they're like, oh, and then they reminded me of something in their backstory that I had forgotten about.
Cool.
And I was like, perfect. And that's like a C plot, we won't get to it for a while, but I'm excited that they like brought that back in, reminded all the other players at the table, like, hey, there's this place where the fairies are from that's under siege right now, or under attack, or, whatever's happening. Yeah. So it's fun. That's
cool. Rad. Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, like Dungeons and Dragons is obviously the most popular TTRPG, and so I think it's the thing that a lot of people kind of cut their teeth on, or like it's kind of like but then it's really fun to have people who are familiar with playing D&D go to systems where I think it's kind of like, well, we know you're going to kind of know how to do the game. Yeah. We know you're going to know how to like build a character to some degree, or utilize equipment or statistics or whatever, and so now we can kind of push the players and the DM to be like, hey, like let's bring the focus back to the story. Let's bring the focus back to kind of a collaborative storytelling experience. Yeah. Which I think, again, like that you can totally do that in D&D, but I think like D&D is very much more kind of like, let's just give you the rules and we'll leave the rest up to you, which I think makes it good for people to just kind of like get good at this. I mean, I've tried to play, like, in my experience, playing a game like Blades in the Dark or something with first-time players can sometimes be kind of tricky because you get in situations where you're like, well, you have 6 equipment slots. You don't have to decide what they are beforehand. You can just make them up on the fly. But then you get people who've never played an RPG before, and they're just kind of like, what does that even mean? Like why would I need equipment? Like what are you talking about? Like you know what I mean? Whereas you say that to a D&D player, and I think a D&D player is like, oh, I know how. Okay, that makes sense.
This and this.
Exactly. So I do think that like I always love kind of like those, seeing people who have only played D&D get into another system, and I think it can just reinvigorate kind of an excitement for the story and excitement for sitting down at the table. Yeah,
and that's what a lot of the players are D&D first and only players in my Daggerheart game, and they're like, dude, Daggerheart's just like, they're loving that over our D&D sessions.
Cool.
Because I think I credit our session 0, which again is not only Daggerheart. You can do this in D&D, but I just did not know about session 0s when I did my first. And I was also picking up, we just swapped spots. Yeah. So, and anyways, session 0s are super important too and very fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess speak more to that. Why do you think your session 0 was so good in your Daggerheart game?
I mean, Daggerheart has a specific outline for
cool.
hand the players. They've got all these different sheets that you print, and they have class-specific character sheets. So, I sent out, like, here are the 9 classes or 10. I forget how many there are. Think about what you guys want to play. And then I gave them all their character sheets: warrior, seraph, sorcerer, rogue. And they have, like, specific backstory questions or like prompts that are specific to rogues and are specific to sorcerers, and then connection questions as well that like force the players to make a connection with the other players at the table. And it's not just like we were buds, we we met on the road here and like saw each other walking into the tavern or something like that. It's like meaningful connections where anyways, I think that's really cool that like it laid it out and like spelled out exactly what I needed to do, because I've never run a successful session 0 until that one. So
cool, that's rad.
Before it was just awesome. Write a backstory.
Yeah, I'd love to check that out, honestly. Like even if you're diving into a game of 5e, just like taking some of those questions from Daggerheart would probably be super helpful.
Yeah, no, seriously.
I have my own list of those questions. I just like started a new campaign last week, and like I did almost the exact same thing that you described, where I like have a list of questions that I give everybody. But my questions are actually generic across the whole group. So I wonder,
and that
like, it'd be
works
really
too.
cool to do like class specific or person
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
That
Well,
would make it even
we got
better.
talking about that with when you guys
Yeah.
were trying to pitch me on how cool paladins were, and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
paladins are dumb. But then like, but I think it was like, it was like you and Logan that were basically like, no, but like you have this oath, and you could maybe have been someone who broke the oath, or you could
Yeah.
have like you come from an order or like a
Yeah.
brotherhood, like, which is stuff that I just had never read into paladin because. Like you're not forced to do that when you build a paladin,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh yeah, if you kind of like really encouraged everyone who sat down to play a
totally.
paladin to be like, think about the place you came from, what are the oaths you've taken, why is that important to you and your family or your
Yeah.
crew or whatever,
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh okay, that's a very cool class
Yeah,
actually.
No, it absolutely is. Yeah.
I mean, it ties back to like collaborative storytelling. Like, I feel like
Exactly.
every single class can be incredibly in depth and interesting if you just put thought and effort behind it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. One more fun plug for Obsession Zero from Dagger
Please.
Heart.
Yeah.
They recommend having a template or like a blank map. And so I built my D&D world, and they've explored like 5% of it. You know, it's like, so it's a big world. And so I exported and printed out a smaller portion of that map that was just like so far away, removed from the D&D campaign. And they encourage letting the players like place cities and like make landmarks and like name towns and like, you know, like solidify different things that their backstories can then stem from. And so that was a really fun, like having the dwarf be like, I am from this mountain range right
That's
here,
cool.
and
Yeah.
there's
So
this
good.
kingdom and this temple,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
like
that's
he
right.
like wrote the main conflict of the story, and I hadn't even like come up with it yet. I was like, I don't know where this like dark mist came from that is like, you know, like turning people into zombies and stuff, and then he like wrote it for me.
That's
And I was like,
that's
perfect.
awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, it's ideal. Yeah, totally.
Genius. I've
Yeah.
never done that. And I feel so stupid that I've never done that.
That was all
Yeah.
Daggerheart. I take zero credit for it, but
Gosh.
that was the most fun part of it. I think
Yeah.
everyone was like they pulled up ChatGPT just to like get the brain rolling, and they were like, I need ideas, and they were like, oh, I've got this really cool thing, and
That's
it
right.
ended up super cool. So,
Yeah, there's nothing more satisfying than building a map with a group of people.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's a game unto
yeah,
itself.
it was great.
Yeah.
I know I know you're a WorldSmith user.
Yes, love WorldSmith.
Yeah, so I'm very curious to know how you've incorporated WorldSmith into your D&D sessions.
Yeah, shops.
Oh yeah.
Shops, and I have been from the get-go. I think I've been one of the first people that has been asking for party creators as well.
Yeah.
So it's
cool.
like I'm like, oh, they're going onto a ship. I
Yeah.
want to be able to be like, you know, give me NPCs that's a captain, a first mate.
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
all these
Like
different
a group of
divisions.
NPCs.
Yeah, a
Cool.
group of NPCs.
It's
which
coming.
Which
It's
is
coming.
I heard it's coming soon, right?
Yeah. We've got a version built and working. So
Cool.
yeah, love
Yeah.
you can talk about
So
it.
do you,
but-
do you build because you kind of mentioned that you improv, so like do you use WorldSmith like behind the screen in session to generate a shop if a person asks for it, or do you kind of prep your
I
WorldSmith
have-
shops first?
Once. I think the one thing the couple of things that in session I've done are I needed a high level, like someone that could stand toe to toe with them combat wise, but it was just like a harbor guard, you know?
Oh,
And so
cool.
it wasn't anything crazy, but I wanted it to be like flavored and
Right.
and then a shop in the City of Brass.
Mhm.
I wanted it to be unique from
Oh,
everything
cool.
that they see on the material plane, and so I was like, give me some like fire related stuff that's like
Yeah.
fire resistance or fire damage or you know whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've used that. The problem I see or I've run into with that is that they're snobby players. They're all entitled. If it's not on D&D Beyond and doesn't integrate, you know, they're like, oh, I don't want to type that in or write that down. And I'm like, guys, come on.
Yeah, well, you
they
should just
can't
tell
look up
them to
the
get on.
health.
Yeah, get
I
on
know,
WorldSmith.
right? I know,
Well,
yeah.
Our player character, she is coming on soon.
coming-
There
it's
we
coming up
go.
soon.
There we go.
And
That'll
it's
be
coming
great
up
because then
automatically.
honestly, WorldSmith blew the doors open for me when it
Yeah.
came to like custom, just the amount of magic items that I could create, and I'm like wanted to add to this suite of SUITE suite.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to add to this like suite of weapons that I had made, but I didn't know how, and I wanted to tie it to specific classes that I hadn't like connected to yet. And WorldSmith was just like, "Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
did exactly what I needed, and it was great."
Yeah,
So,
I love too the example you brought up because I do think this is where WorldSmith really shines is like a human combatant or something, but you don't want him to be. You know, if you go and look up guard in the monster manual, it's like a CR1, thing with like with 30 hit points. Oh yeah, so it's so nice to just be like, I want this person to be CR10. They are still a harbor guard. You know, it's like, and just to be able to quickly pull up a stat block for that, where you're like, okay, this person fits in the world, but it's still going to be a challenge in combat. Is so nice.
And it was fun. They gave him like a trident and like a net. Yeah. And so they ended up just like having to make a bunch of like strength saves to like break out of the net, and it ended up being super fun to like trap them down, even if it was just for like part of their turn or like to like get another NPC to like attack them.
Yeah, it just adds in some flavor more than just people hitting each other with close combat attacks and stuff. My final question for you is what advice would you have for new GMs, someone who wants to run their very first RPG?
Yeah, I think just do it. I'll pull from Nike. I think I was harsher on myself than I needed to be, but I like kind of hamming up like how bad that first session was. It wasn't terrible. But I want people to know that like it's not going to be, you see an Ian who's been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. 25 years?
Long, as Obi-Wan Kenobi would say, long time.
You see someone like Ian who, like, for me, that was my only exposure to someone DMing a D&D game. And I was like, I cannot. I'm just so grateful for everyone else. And that's the second part of it is just do it and surround yourself with people that are okay with, like, working through the kinks with you and walking through that process with you as you learn and, like, grow as a DM. Because it's not going to be great at first, but as you do it, as you practice, it'll get better. So
that's great advice. I'll say too, as someone who was a player in your first game, if I remember correctly, there was like a map that had a bunch of little islands, and then each island was like basically dominated by a different type of monster. Like it was like this island has a bunch of cockatrices on it, and this island has a bunch of elementals on it or something. Yeah. And I think what's great is like that is ultimately a very simple idea for a challenge. And it was a blast to play. Yeah. And I've played, dozens of D&D games. And I didn't enter into that session thinking, this is dumb, this isn't interesting. Like, I had an awesome time, and I got really excited about it. So I also think, like, that's, like, to kind of validate exactly what you're saying, it's like, it's fine if your first game that you run is just like, here's 4 islands, and the players need to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and each one's going to have a different color dragon on it. It's like, that sounds fun. I would play that game tonight. Like, that sounds like an awesome game. It's like you don't have to break your back coming up with necessarily a huge backstory, because a lot of times, like, I love your story of getting excited about the monster manual, just being like, there's cool monsters here. And I remember playing that first session with you, and you threw monsters at me I'd never experienced before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd never fought a cockatrice before. I never fought, like there was like rust mites as well that were like eating our equipment.
Were so
cool.
And
so it was just like, I had a great time. It was awesome. I loved playing it. And so like, I truly think there's so much, if you just have a simple idea, some fun monsters, a simple goal, like, anyone can run their first session of D&D, and the players will have a good time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Well said.
Well, Austin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I guess where can people, because I know you also like post some stuff about D&D.
I do.
Do you want to push people towards any social channels?
Sure. Yeah, there's I put our actual plays on there, and then just any skits that I have free time to write and shoot and edit, which is little. But Nat 20 Narrative is what it's called.
Cool.
I just, initially I wanted to make it like an advice channel, and it's kind of skewed in another direction, but I would love to come back to advice and just like give people like, hey, I want to get more people GMing. Yeah. I feel like the more people that GM, the more people that can play, and the more people that like can support GMs in during the play, because it's not easy sometimes. So. But it is very, very fun. So,
well, we'll link your channel in the comment description. And thanks so much for coming on today.
We
really appreciate it. We will see you all next week.